1, go.
Edge Radio. It's Edge Radio Australia. It is time for the Genius Zone. As you can see, the Shaved Monkey is in the building, and thankfully he is leaving right now. Now that, of course, that was a special, and I'm going to invert these comments, treat for a very special mum. Thanks, Mum.
Very special mum.
Absolutely.
Yes,
who did request?
My mum always comments. Actually, not requests.
Mm-hmm.
She was actually quite disgusted.
As am I right now.
So anyway, here we are on Edge Radio Australia.
We are.
Thanks,
that.
Aaron.
Yeah.
And we've got a guest. We've got our first guest from Genius Zone.
Absolutely. In the new studio. Lovely to see you.
House.
Would you like to do the intros?
I would love to.
Good stuff.
I actually had the pleasure of throwing Caroline under the bus the other day.
That sounds
during
painful.
the podcast. So we like to really prepare our people so that it's like jumping out of a plane without a parachute. So you are so scared that by the time it comes to talking, it's just an absolute walk in the park. And Caroline, I do have to say, you are an exquisite sleep therapist. You have created the airborne methodology.
Big
Can
word.
I even say that word?
You have now.
And we've dragged Aaron into this one because we feel that he's probably got a few sleep habits that could be changed, and we're going to discuss, and he may like to ask lots of questions as well. But just to put into perspective before we hand over, you are really about sleep performance, because I think people do get sleep anxiety. And as I mentioned on the podcast the other day, Michael Jackson died as a result of this when he asked his doctor for milk.
Mm-hmm.
And milk, which was a substance that the doctor gave him to help him sleep.
Okay.
And it was for the simple fact that he had to perform the following day. So Caroline specializes in helping people perform, getting through some of their, like what I've been doing today all day, right? Just throwing everybody under the bus.
She loves throwing people under the
She
bus.
does. She does. Honestly.
Clean up job. A lot of blood splattered everywhere.
Oh, look, clean up aisle 4. Get the mop.
Yep. So here we are. So you're all about staying mentally and emotionally strong. And when life gets turbulent, when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Absolutely.
So let's go with your background. So you started off in psychology.
I did. You can probably pick up an accent as well.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
No.
Not from Dublin by any chance.
I happen to be from Dublin. And it's actually, it's interesting that I've ended up here 30 years later. I decided to leave Dublin. I trained in clinical psychology.
Right.
And actually, it's interesting. I feel my life was very ho-hum, It's just like, this is all about radio and rhythm and ups and downs.
Melody.
But mine was like,
you were flatlining a bit?
Interesting. As soon as my father died suddenly of a heart attack when I was 23, my heart started beating. So it's really fascinating. It took his flatlining to wake me up to life.
Wow.
In other words, what is life about? Why am I here?
Wow.
What's the big picture?
Yeah, not to make this about myself, but you've just put up something great curiosity in me, because I lost my mum at 23.
Wow.
And it's massive change in your life.
Massive.
Because you're young, you're still young,
Yes.
and so much, I don't know, there's so much history there, obviously, but there's so much of, you're losing a maternal part of your life, or your dad in this case, or it's such a big change.
Yeah.
So for you, that changed your direction.
Totally.
Yeah. Why do you think people have to sometimes hit the wall before they wake up?
It's a great question. I just feel for me, I was just kind of unconscious. Does that make sense?
Does, totally.
Walking around in your sleep?
Autopilot,
yeah,
perhaps.
kind of on autopilot with no real sense as to why am I doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
That sense of, as I say, my airborne framework. The first is aim for altitude. Where are you going?
Yeah.
And if you're going up, it suggests growth.
Mm-hmm.
So there's got to be challenge. And
without challenge, there's no growth.
Without challenge, there is no growth.
Yeah.
100%. I agree with that. So do you think that going airborne, because obviously a lot of people listening into this, they'll go, like Aaron will think, for example, it's about racing cars.
Everything's about racing cars.
And, our audience might go, airborne? What does she mean by airborne? But let's talk about when people are in that really tough space, and there's so much trauma and stress going on in the world, and that sleep problems, derive from that. But explain the airborne and what you, I guess, intended by creating that.
Look, it's interesting. I grew up in a family, 5 brothers. In the 70s, I was watching F1, right? So
I knew I liked you. You know,
back when
kindred spirits.
pit stops were 10 seconds.
Yeah, yeah,
a long time
absolutely.
ago.
Penelope pit stop. I love that.
A little bit different.
And I love the analogy of vehicles. And maybe I'll come back to that in a minute, but you might say, well, where are you going from on the ground to suddenly up in the air? And I think what I suppose got me to the air is after I did a skydive, right?
So good, isn't it?
And God, it was so amazing.
Yeah.
But that sense of going up, getting through turbulence, and once you get up and you come down, whoa, everything is clear. But it's that sense of skydiving, whoosh, you're down and you go, God, I got to go up again. But what does it take to actually have the courage and the nerve to put yourself up into that
That's
space?
a huge one.
May I ask you this
so-
question
it's a
then on that front?
breakthrough,
Because
yeah.
I've done the old 15,000, the big jump, right?
Wow.
And why did I do it? I wanted to feel what it feels like to fall at 250 k's an hour.
Wow.
I wanted that sensation.
did?
And I did, yeah. And but it was a freedom thing for me.
Yeah.
It was, and I'm scared of heights, right?
Mm.
First up, like I'm scared of heights, so a ladder freaks me out a
I
little
was
bit.
going to say,
Yeah,
you
going
did say
fast.
you were scared of
Oh,
heights
that's
to
right.
me
Going
the other day.
fast, love that. So I sold it to myself that way. Was it for you? Was it an opening of freedom to you? Is that?
It's really interesting you say that, Aaron, because one of my personal values is freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
You're
And
in
I-
the right space.
Oh, man.
Read that T-shirt
you know?
behind you. There we go.
So it's interesting because if you think John DeMartini, he
Mhm.
once said, values come from voids in our
Yep.
lives. So what was
Yes.
missing in your life in the past? And growing up in Dublin, big city, busy, lots of people in our household, 10
Right.
people, friends coming and going. There wasn't a lot of space. So
Yep.
why did I end up in Western Australia? It's just like
Because you wanted space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Plus,
Freedom.
I feel I found my voice.
Okay.
So coming
Mm.
from a family, as we mentioned in the podcast, where I didn't do much speaking, I was the listener.
And you then, okay.
Really interesting. But getting up into the air, this idea, I went from skydiving to the notion of what would it take to actually stay up? And this is where the paraglider came into being. So
Wow.
staying airborne as an analogy for life. There's
Yeah.
turbulence, there's weather.
That's so
Yes.
true.
There's
And
a
yet
very-
you're staying objective, aren't you? Because I know when we're teaching a particular NLP technique, you've got to go up. Of course, I don't call it airborne,
Mm,
but you've got to go up so you can get out of the mud
yes.
and look objectively at that problem, because like Florence Shin says, it's all about the game of life and how to play it. So
Yeah.
you're kind of like looking at it from that direction. But I'm also wondering if there's a little bit of a Tony Robbins theme in there where, you know, he gets people to walk across fire. Have you heard about
I've
that?
seen that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And, you know, is it like when you were jumping out of a plane, obviously that must have been terrorizing.
No,
and
it was far from it.
it wasn't
No,
terrorizing.
not at all. Not
But
at all.
you know, because you don't like heights, there must have been that element of like, you know, breakthrough.
Sitting on the side of the plane, not too crash hot on that spot, you know, when you're just about to do the jump. But no, the anticipation of like, what's it going to feel like? What's that level of
Yes.
freedom going to feel like? Yeah, the anticipation of freedom is a very important thing. Freedom is fundamental to me, full stop. So, I mean, I'm curious to see if other people had the same sort of feelings. I don't know. We're all a bit different.
Oh,
But yeah,
I'd be terrorized.
it opens a door.
Yeah, look, for me, it's interesting because airborne is an analogy, right? And it's also an acronym. So AIRBORN, they stand for something. The
Okay.
N stands at the end is navigate with presence. So interestingly enough, by the way, mine was a tandem, right?
Yep,
I wasn't a static line jump, and it was a big one. And
Good stuff.
I felt it was a very meditative experience.
Oh wow,
And I felt
meditative.
every cell in my body was
Yes.
lined up,
Alive.
and it was wow.
Now-
So there was a
yeah.
sense of being absolutely focused in the moment, not thinking about future, past. And it was, once we touched down, I just felt, wow, that was amazing.
You've said something very cool. I think it's very cool. Living in the moment. Right? Everybody talks
Yeah.
about it. We all talk about living in the moment. Who does? Most people don't.
Mm.
We're planning, you know, a week ahead, 2 weeks ahead, whatever. We're always planning a little bit. And, you know, to be conscious in that moment and actually enjoy every bit of it it's so special, and it's something we don't do enough. And I think,
Exactly.
like, we're talking about jumping out of planes and parasailing and that sort of thing, which, by the way, parasailing is so relaxing. It's crazy
I
relaxing.
haven't done it.
Yeah,
So relaxing.
it is crazy relaxing.
Yeah.
I've done it in Bali
Yeah.
and it is so chill. You could have a camera up there
Yeah,
and literally photograph from the top. Hey?
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Can
Yeah.
I tell quickly
Mm.
the airborne acronym? You taught it to me. So this is completely Caroline's, creation.
Sure.
Altitude, illuminate,
Mm.
reboot, build, overcome, release, navigate, energize.
Yeah.
I love that.
Mhm.
So how are we going to make Aaron go airborne today and completely reboot?
I could jump
and-
out the building. I mean, that could work.
because we've got some sleep
Could
issues
could we
happening
illuminate
right here.
his sleep edge?
Well,
basically?
yes.
Perhaps it's possible. I mean, you're obviously
Yeah.
a big part of the reason you're here is to talk about sleep, right? So
Yes,
from
yes.
that, and many other things, I'm sure we'll just talk about Formula One instead, right?
Yes, let's go
let's
Formula
just do
One.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's just a warm up.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, look, sleep is something that I do very poorly. And I come from a genetic family of doing it very poorly. Mum was absolutely shocking. A big night of sleep for her was literally 5 hours. 3 hours was her
So is
typical
it
sleep.
because you find it hard to go to sleep when your head hits the pillow? Is it because you've just got bad habits?
No, for me, it's noise. So my mind is too busy. My mind does not stop. It's always running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So when I lay down on the pillow, if I do not have another exterior noise going, whether it be a podcast or
Yes.
YouTube or
Yeah,
music or
I
what,
do
I
that.
have,
Mm.
because I
Yeah.
can't switch off.
Yeah,
I have to
yeah.
allow the other noise to distract me until my body
Yes.
just says enough.
Go to sleep.
You
I
know what
do
I've
the
just
same.
heard you say there,
Mm.
young man? I can't switch off.
Mhm.
All right, that's a belief.
Isn't it?
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Boom.
So as long as you have that belief, I can't switch off.
Mm. And as long as
It'll
you're going to
become
lie
a
to me and call
reality.
me a young man, that's great. I'm happy with that.
Best compliment he's had.
I'll
all
take it.
around.
Absolutely.
So where would you go with that, Caroline? I mean, you obviously, like myself, you sit objectively, you know that there's a sleep pattern, and there's a couple of things that I've just learned about Aaron, but the thing about you, for example, needing something to distract you to go to sleep, like listening to a podcast.
Yep.
So then him saying the reason being is because he can't switch off. Where would you take him from there if he was in clinic with you?
Well, first of all, it's important to know how much sleep do you need, because really we're talking quantity.
Mhm.
One thing is quantity, but
Sure.
some people will say, and this is where the F1 cars come in. And by the way, we're talking combustion engines.
We
here,
are
right?
the real ones. Bring back
real
V8s.
ones.
They're coming
real
back, and the V10.
because we're all different vehicles.
Yeah.
And we have a different sized tank, right? So how much fuel do you need? Now
Yeah.
most
How do
people
you know
need
that, though?
most people need between 7 and 9 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we're talking average population,
Mhm.
but some people with they have their genes, they're slightly different
Yep.
genes. There's one of the genes called the DEC2 gene, and they have a mutation on that, and they
Okay.
they can be fine on 4 hours.
I'm
They can
sure that
wake
my
up
genes are
and they
mutated.
are
Yeah.
Perfect,
Yeah,
right?
wow.
No impairment
Really?
whatsoever.
Okay.
But they are like hen's teeth. They're
I can
rare
imagine.
birds.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
for most people, you've got to figure out how much actually do I need so that when I go to bed, I fall asleep within a reasonable time frame.
Yeah.
I'm not waking up lots through the night. And by
Sure.
a reasonable time frame, it could be 7, 10, 15, 20, anything up to 30 minutes, right?
Mm.
You've
So
gotta
3
give
hours
your-
is not normal?
got to give yourself brain
Not
time
3
to
hours.
actually, like, see all the gadgets here in
Yeah.
front? When this program is finished, at the end of the day, you're not going to just unplug from the wall. You're
No.
going to systematically turn down the knobs, close the files, turn everything in the background. Then you'll switch off of the wall.
And then he'll create his content. But so you've heard two things here. One from Aaron, and then the other day you heard from myself. So with Aaron, you heard I can't switch off.
Mm.
From me, I said on Wednesday I need to distract myself. So that was just
Okay.
what. And you found that. So do you think that there is an underlying belief and a reason that people, whether they can't fall asleep, whether they can't stay asleep, or in Aaron's case, needs that constant kind of stimulation to switch off? How do you get to the bottom of it?
I think first you've got to take a person and just literally build a profile, look to see what is actually happening in your life, in your sleep life. So how much time you're putting aside for bed, how much time do you actually need, right? But what happens, our days get really busy. We have 24 hours in the day, right? And if you say from the time you wake up doing all the business of your day, you work out how many hours is that. And then we say, well, if that's so many hours, you've only left how many hours for sleep? And you go, oh gosh, I haven't left myself enough time.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, regularity is key. It's king, it's queen, it's ace. It is the number one thing.
So you're saying that you need to get into a system,
absolutely.
like a pattern?
It's one of the. It just seems so bleedingly obvious, but you need to try and get up and go to bed at the same time.
Do you do that?
But
No way.
You do it. What, do you do a
Never.
different time every night?
Every night.
Every day?
Yeah.
All right.
Like to me, if I go to bed, say if I fall asleep at say 1 a.m., that is a very early night for me. Like
you're a night owl.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically.
3 a.m. is my, like, you know what, 3 is about when I want to go to sleep.
Yep.
That's realistic.
Yep.
And in a perfect world, I'd love 7 hours, but that means getting up at 10 and the kind of, you're missing a lot of the day. So you can't do that. So you compromise that end.
And I think that's really hard because society is not built for, that's known as your chronotype. And we have the early birds, we have the night owls, and then we've got those who are 50-50.
Yeah.
And then we have the extreme early birds and the extreme night owls. But you know what? Most people still have to get up early and go to work, even though they're night owls. So their
for
circadian
example,
rhythm is saying, I'm not ready to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Yes,
100%.
and that's what I guess you mean by habit. But let's just take another scenario here where mine is more habitual. So I do have a habit each night, but one of them is I'll get into bed and I'll grab my phone and I'll go down a rabbit hole on social media because that's my time of when I do it, like when I'm watching other people.
Damn those opposable thumbs. Off you go.
But that, because it's a habit, what would you say about that? Is that a bad habit? They say don't look at it because of what you just said about the circadian rhythms.
Look, it's an interesting one. In fact, the National Sleep Foundation, they did an Aussie snapshot on sleep just the other week. They had, National Sleep Week, and unbelievable the number of people who are going to bed with their phone right next to them. So the biggest killer for sleep for most people is the device.
But it's become our alarm clock. That's the problem, apart from everything else. Yeah.
But what would it take to just plug it in somewhere else? Just not even out of harm's reach. But
sure.
It's not. It's the content. What are you watching? Because it's dopamine. You're getting a dopamine hit.
Absolutely.
That's
and it's
spot on.
the molecule of more. It's like, give me more of that.
Yeah.
It's a drug.
Yes.
So what happens is time then condenses. You suddenly, I just have a look, and before you know it, it's like 2 hours later, and you're still, the brain is revving. What if we can take to the air for a second?
Yep.
It's like we're flying high in the daytime, 30,000 above. How long does it take to land a plane? Right?
Well, safely. It takes a while.
But what if Aaron's flying at night? Like, let's just say that's his kind of rhythm where, because like, for example, everybody's sleep and their REM is different. Like I went away on the weekend and I had a friend who slept in the other room and she was saying to me, Terri, the strangest thing is you snore, but you snore at 6:30 a.m. And she said, if you're snoring at 6:30 a.m., but you're not before that, that's telling me that that's when you're in the REM deep sleep.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, so what anyway? But then is there rules to when we should sleep? Like, should we be going to sleep before 12 midnight?
We need to. Matt Walker, Professor Matthew Walker, who is, we mentioned him the other day. He's an absolute prominent scientist in the field of sleep medicine.
Right.
He talks about the 4 macronutrients of sleep.
Okay.
We talk about macronutrients when it comes to food.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he said the 4 macronutrients of sleep are Q, Q, R, T. Now, the first Q is quality.
Yep.
Quality.
Okay.
Regularity.
Yes.
Right? Getting up and going to bed. And basically, we're guided by the sun, right? It literally turns on this central switch, little tiny piece, size of a grain of rice in our brain. And that is the central switch.
Okay.
And that's going to give us clues as to when to wake up, go to bed.
So they say to look at the sun early in the morning when it's safe, don't they?
Yes.
Just to get those
Really?
meridians.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Yeah,
Okay.
So
that
it's-
literally
yeah.
sets the clock in timer. So it sets the timer and it will give the body a signal as to when to actually start landing the plane to have a nice night's sleep. And the question I
Right.
wanted to ask you is,
Yeah.
are you actually giving yourself a half an hour of buffer time
Absolutely
after
not.
the busy day?
No,
Because
absolutely not.
You'll hear on the plane, they say, please
No
prepare the
time for
cabin for
that.
landing.
Yeah.
Make sure your tray tables are stowed. The captain has turned up. They say the same
Yes.
thing every
They
time.
do. They do.
And you know
Prepare for
what?
landing.
That's right.
We need a routine, bedtime routine. If you're a parent, and I'm sure there's parents out there, you have kids, you say they have a bedtime. Why, as adults, do most of us forget that?
Yeah, because we
need a
want the kids to go to bed so
Because
we
we're
can have
rebelling.
adult
Yeah,
time,
exactly.
right?
We're
You know, let's be
rebelling,
honest.
though.
Okay?
You know, we
I know.
didn't
Yeah.
we didn't like it as kids, but I know I hated being told to go to bed,
Oh,
and I wanted to stay up. So it's almost like a rebellious thing.
Yes.
So when we were doing a podcast, because Caroline was a little bit concerned, because while we were doing the podcast the other day, because there is this incredible modality that Caroline practices called EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. So
Okay.
this is tapping. And I guess you were concerned whether we just went straight into the tapping with no context and people didn't understand. And we did do it around sleep.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, like, how can tapping, like, we won't do that demonstration because obviously we're radio here, but how can the tapping help someone like Aaron? So, for example, what if Aaron doesn't want to change? It's affecting him physically, it's affecting his health. He knows it at a conscious level, but there's a fight going on the other hand, where he doesn't want to change. I'm not saying that that's true, but do you want to change?
I think my life would be better if I had a better quality sleep, okay, and a better routine of sleep. I absolutely know that my life would be better. But then I don't prioritize myself. I think I've got these other things there's so much to be done.
Can I tell you a quick story
Absolutely.
here? A couple of months ago, I was down the road having my car fixed, right,
Yep.
in one of these service places. And when I went to pick it up, the guy said, look, we're going to be closed. Can you go into the showroom? The keys will be behind the desk. So I went into this showroom with brand new vehicles and I went, whoa, look at these. These are awesome. I don't go into car showrooms very often. And I suddenly saw all these whippity-doo-dah vehicles, lots of gadgets,
like
right?
that.
Technical term.
And I realized that most brand new vehicles, the RAC reckon that most brand new vehicles that roll out of a showroom have a 5-star ANCAP safety rating, right? And in other words, this vehicle is going to keep you on the road. It's going to keep you safe. And all of a sudden I thought, you know what, it's such a drain on your pocket, right? They take maintenance. There's a lot involved. And once you've done so many clicks, right, you trade up.
Of course you do, yeah.
Suddenly I saw myself reflected in the paintwork of a big 4-wheel drive. And I suddenly thought, do you know what vehicle we should be focusing on?
What's that?
This one.
The body.
Yeah.
Because
The body vehicle.
Right,
this is
one.
getting used from A to Z.
Do you know why?
This
Let's
needs
gang
trading in.
let's
This
gang
needs
up
taking
on
and crushing.
Do you know what?
Starting
Okay,
again.
Let's take it to the circuit, right?
Yep.
You're a high performance vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
he
Okay.
is.
How do
Yeah,
you want to
definitely.
run the race? When does the ultimate race
Great
finish?
question. I love
Right?
that question.
So are you
That's
going
a
to limp,
hard one.
Aaron, are
But
you
you
going to
let it-
limp
let
to the
it.
finish line? Are you going to
Yeah.
crash and burn long before you get there?
Okay.
Ooh.
Because-
the great Colin Chapman, okay, the founder of Lotus, he believed a race car was perfectly engineered if as it crossed the finishing line, all 4 wheels fell off it and it fell to bits and skidded into oblivion, right? That's the perfect engineering. It's designed to last just the distance of the race
Yeah.
and no more.
Make it
because all that weight.
grand.
So
It's-
kind of to a degree, I'm kind of living like that, right? So when
that's a great metaphor.
when I
that tells
fall
us a
over the
lot,
edge.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
But my
So,
question would be, if you were to stop and take a selfie today, how many safety stars would you give yourself? In other words, if you pop your bonnet,
Yep.
right? What is the engine like? Think physical health, and then you say, well, how many cylinders am I running on today? Am
When I turn the key,
sometimes slow to take off,
it is lighting up
slow
like
to
a
slow
Christmas
down?
tree. Every single light's flashing at me. Absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
So
and it's a good
I'm
analogy.
going to challenge you here, okay?
Yeah.
So you get the guys, the gurus, like Dr. Joe D. Spencer And people who they're really big on transcendental meditation.
Mhm.
So they will say, okay, let's do a hypnotic. And of course, as a hypnotherapist myself, obviously I do this. However, what's your thoughts on this as a sleep expert when you can say to a person, they've only had 3 hours sleep? However, I'm going to allow you to feel when you wake up like you've had 8 hours sleep. So they're quantum leaping at the speed of light so that the brain actually believes that they've slept. What's your thoughts on that? Because obviously you may challenge it as a sleep therapist.
You asked me previously, where does EFT come in? So just to kind of answer that question, I think it's very useful for working on beliefs. So if you feel belief that my sleep can't be any better, you have to really understand why sleep is possibly the most important thing you can do.
Sure.
And I think what happens is when we're sleeping, we're unconscious. We don't know what's happening. And I want you to think when you fall asleep, you have a pit crew that come in, right?
Mhm.
And they're working for you for free on your behalf.
Oh, I
and
love
they
it.
take you down to workshops, and one crew are working on aspects of the body, and then another part of the night, another part. And they say, well, where's Aaron? He hasn't come down tonight. Wait, look at all these lights flashing up on the system. He's done some crazy laps, and we need the repairs. And well, he's not coming. We're going home. So
and
you're
you're
going to
dreaming
miss the
you're
repairs.
driving a Formula One car at top speed.
Well, this is
How good would that be?
Dreaming.
Why not? Why not indeed?
But that's one part, and it's understanding the why. And I think if you don't get that, nothing's going to change.
It's very
so
true.
That is, we have to start with the why, right?
Yeah.
Then the how will always show up. And I think this is where tools like EFT are brilliant for helping to, if you are on high alert, the body's stressed, your amygdala is firing. Tapping actually sends a message through acupressure points to the amygdala to say, calm down, all is well. So you can literally reset the nervous system. So that's one thing. But if you're only sleeping 3 hours and you need 7 or 8, the question was, can you do some TM? Look, I believe, I don't know, Dr. Andrew Huberman from the Huberman Lab, right? He talks about non-sleep deep rest, NSDR. He coined the term. It's a form of yoga nidra. And he reckoned he sold it to Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google. And he said, that sounds pretty cool. I'm going to try that.
Not a bad sale. Yeah. Okay.
But if you say to the CEO of Google, why don't you try some yoga nidra? He'd probably kind of look at
He'd have to Google it to find out what it is.
Yeah, that's why he probably doesn't even know.
But it's a script. You take yourself through. It could be 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Is that right?
And you can wake up from that feeling recharged.
Yeah.
Now, Andrew Huberman, I believe, and Professor Matthew Walker, they have talked about getting together and looking to see can they do deeper dives into that.
Right.
That's really cool.
So with personalizing your routine, because we're all different.
Yes.
So you're personalizing a routine that will help you go to sleep. Is that something you'd sort of recommend? I mean, well, we've obviously been having a bit of a giggle about the.
And can you have a
Formula One
routine that is a non-routine? Like
How do you mean?
You're in a habit of not having a habit. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't have a routine. That's your routine.
I suppose. Okay. So, yeah, my lack of routine is a routine. That makes sense.
But you can. So even if you made a routine, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I want more sleep. Okay, I want better sleep.
Yeah.
So, is there building blocks I can put in place to personalize it for myself?
Look, first, I love it. You've said I want it. You have to. So then you've got to figure out how am I going to do this, and you've got to set the stage for sleep. Because it's like a performance, right? You have to set up the environment, right? You've got to make sure all the props are in place.
Yes.
Everything is working.
Yep.
Then you've got to, and that's typical, let's say, sleep hygiene. So you're looking at lighting is a huge lever. Most of us, Edison was amazing. He came along and he figured out how to, how can we mass reproduce the light bulb?
Yeah.
But since then, industry's been going 24/7, so we don't switch off. So we need darkness at nighttime, and I think a lot of us are in bright lights. So a couple of hours before bed, you need to dim the lights, make sure that the bedroom is cool, optimal 18 to 20 degrees.
Really?
make sure the bedroom is a place that invites you
Oh,
in.
so sorry, did I just hear you say you've got to cool down?
Yes, absolutely.
No, I warm up. I like to be warm when I go to bed. Do you know what we were doing? I was tipping off my friend. We were freezing on the weekend and the bed was so cold.
Okay.
Literally a hairdryer. My late husband actually taught me this one. And you get the hairdryer and you put it under the blanket. But you're saying that
Ambient air temperature. But when you get into bed, you want to be snug. So your body temperature, your core
Absolutely.
body temperature needs to drop a couple of degrees
Mm-hmm.
to get you down to the bottom of the pit so you
I
get
don't
down
know
into
whether I
deep
can do
sleep
that
and
one.
stay there.
I'm not sure
and
about that
the
one.
problem, there's a lovely, there's a cover, a pod cover you can buy for your bed called 8 Sleep, right?
Okay.
They ship from the US.
Is
It
that like a
seems-
heavy, what do they
No,
call
it's
it?
a topper that
weight?
has, no, it's actually, it picks up your body temperature moment by moment and adjusts it accordingly.
Right.
So it
Serious?
also tracks your movements. So it's basically going to give you a readout of what your sleep has been like.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm a
And it
single
can be
man,
adjusted
so I buy
either
my
side.
bedding from Kmart, right? Because I don't care. You don't care.
There's
I mean, I
nothing
was
wrong with
look,
Kmart bedding.
a close friend of mine. She just redid all her bedding because she wanted to sort of clean
Yes.
out her
Mhm.
past, if you like, and all of that. And very therapeutic for her. Made a big
Yeah.
effort of it. I'm like, that pattern's not girly. I want that one. But we
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
guys. We don't
Yeah.
put that sort of thought
Yeah.
into it. So it's
Yeah.
a far. But I do get it. Like when you go to a nice hotel, something like that, or a B&B or whatever, and it's like and it's got that
Bit
warmth and
luxury
yeah,
and all that.
I get it. You know,
Yeah,
it becomes more of an event, but for
Yes.
every day it's different.
But
Right.
it's interesting that you do say cooling down because I have
Yes.
heard of that.
It's very important.
Yes.
Temperature, light. So one thing is just set the environment, and there's other things you can do. But the next thing is you're coming onto stage. It's your performance. You've got to do this show every night. So
Okay.
you've got to be match fit, ready
The
for the
sleep show?
performance, the sleep show.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
So physiologically, are you ready for sleep? So are you exercising? Are you eating well? Are you calming down at the end of the day? Have you got a calming routine? And this is where having a routine at the end of the day is really
Do you
important.
think Aaron might need an incentive? So, for example, knowing a little bit about his personality, that, he's that high flying type of person who's adventurous. He likes excitement.
Yes.
He likes a little bit of unpredictability too. You've probably picked that up
Yes.
because you do the value system. So being in that kind of situation, would you say that you need to kind of set a precedence to say to him, well, what would, be exciting about your having so much more sleep or the right amount of sleep? Because maybe
Great.
deep down in his subconscious mind, just saying, and sorry to use you as a guinea pig
Why
here,
not?
but it's like, like everything else, there could be this subconscious voice using adventure, using unpredictability, using all of this stuff to protect him from something. Because that's kind of like what we kind of focus. It's like, so what does and please don't answer this because this is a kind of a question that would need to land, but what is your subconscious getting out of being unpredictable, adventurous, not having any routine, and getting so little sleep? And that's kind of a question to just let that land. But I do want to cover people who can't sleep at all, or you know what I mean? Like they get into bed and they can't sleep.
And that's the third piece. So
Okay.
if one is setting the stage, the other is, are you match fit? Can you show up and do this performance every day, including the matinees? And the next is, right, you've got to deliver.
Sure.
Right. So when it's camera, action camera, whatever way they say it, you've got to know your lines. So all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I can't fall asleep.
Yes, I make them up as I go.
I was going to say, I think
and
we do
people-
that around
and
here.
people get anxious.
Yeah.
And then they get anxious and they say, I'm not falling asleep. And then so the worst thing you can do is stay in bed, lie in bed. So with stimulus control is really important, because very often what happens is if you lie in bed and it's an hour and you're still thinking and you're tossing and turning, bed will become associated with not sleeping.
Yes.
And it will be a place that you
True.
go, oh, avoidance. So what's
Gotcha.
really important is, first up, before you actually get into bed,
Mhm.
you got to clear this.
Okay.
So go through what's on my mind. What am I thinking about? What am I worried about? Just get a list going on. Just get everything from here. All that front of mind stuff, just write it down.
And you don't even have to write like the proper words. Like Martini does this, but he'll just, if you have a thought, you set an intention, and as the thoughts are coming, you can just scribble.
Okay.
And because he does that. I don't know whether you did the breakthrough experience. So just even getting it from here to here gets anything that is on the mind. But do you think that you've got a busy mind because you're overthinking, or do you think your mind's just busy because it's go, go, go?
No, I'm a horrendous overthinker. Basically, when I go to bed, I'm reinventing the wheel. Right? That's the problem. And even if it's just doesn't, you have no idea. Like I used to, and I've changed this. So in my old house, I had in my bedroom a very large bedroom. So I actually set up an office on the other side, so that when I would at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd have a creative idea. I'd get up and I'd go and work. And I'd get it out of my brain, right? And that kind of worked. The only problem is it worked in a very great way in a creative space. Got a lot done. Yeah. But it wasn't great for the sleeps, because then going back to sleep.
Augustine did things like
really?
that. Oh yeah, the great theologian. Like they would, because some of their ideas, because especially if they're downloads. So if you're getting, so I have to agree with that. I hope that doesn't go against what you're teaching here. But, if you're suddenly getting a download in the middle of the night, damn straight to get up and write it down. Because if they say that if you get an idea and then you don't action it, it'll go to someone else.
I don't want to give my stuff away.
You don't. So, and I love what you're saying is get out of bed and go to another room. Don't do the downloading in the bedroom. Because you want to keep the bedroom as a place you come back to when it's like,
Okay.
All right. I have a curly one I'd like to ask you, because I think a lot of people would feel this. So if you're, in a, I don't know, have the bad luck or misfortune to be sharing a bed with someone like me, you might have somebody who wants to go to sleep, and they want quiet and they want this and that. And this has happened to be in past relationships where they want it to be a dark, quiet place.
Yes.
I can't cope in that environment. So is there things that people can do on both sides of the bed there that might solve that problem?
Well, it's really interesting because a lot of people today are talking about the notion of a sleep divorce, right? Have you heard of that?
I have.
No, I haven't. Do tell.
Yeah. It's where basically because you're sharing the bed and both people have different sleep needs. Some like it hot, the other likes it cold. Yeah. Somebody's pulling and pushing and grunting and snoring and you name it. It means that
it's like you've got a camera at my place. All right.
So nobody is getting a decent night's sleep. So the idea here is to, set up 2 rooms if you have the space beautifully the way you want to, right? And then you have sleepovers, right? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I'm a cuddler. So I like a cuddle.
Yes, but you can have the cuddling. But once you fall asleep, you're sleeping on your own. You are on your own.
That's true. That's true. You're rolling over anyway.
You bookend the night with cuddling, and then in the morning you cuddle.
Yes.
But you know what it means? You wake up in the morning and you're feeling more refreshed.
Yeah, okay.
You've had decent sleep. You're going to be a kinder, more compassionate person. You're going to be a better listener. In fact, what the studies show is that people's relationships actually improve.
Do you know?
There's people think there's shame around
I have a friend, and of course I'm not going to shame them and blame them on the show.
I'll put it up on the website later. Sorry.
But actually, it's a feather in their cap because they do that. So they've got a great marriage.
Yep.
But they have separate rooms. It's like, what the? And, however, they have that time when they get together and they do that like in the morning and at night.
Yes.
So that they, before they go off to their own beds, they are together, sharing that space.
Okay.
And then when they're getting up the next day, they're sharing that space again, but they just can't sleep with each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something
it's
about
becoming
that.
Increasingly more common, and more people are actually talking about it. They've been doing it, but a little bit hush hush.
Yeah. Well, people don't like to be stepping out of the norm, right?
Yeah,
but years ago, it was a sign of status to have your own room. It was people who had no money would all sleep together.
In the Buckingham Palace, they sleep. The Queen slept in a separate room from her.
I think she's got a few bucks.
I know, but like this, it's true. It is true. So, can you give us some tips before we go? Because I'd hate to close the show and someone's going, oh, this lady's going to help me with my sleep, how to fall off to sleep. What happens, because I have been through this before in my life, where you get into this terrible pattern where you literally can't sleep at night and you're tossing and turning. I hear
Get out of
one
bed.
thing, get out of
Get
bed.
out of bed.
Get out of
Okay,
bed.
number one is you get out of bed
Yeah.
because you're not sleeping anyway.
But do you go
And-
outside?
and-
Do you do a
and-
jog or
Oh,
exercise?
no. You set up
Okay.
another little space, right?
Right.
A little nook
Mhm.
in another room with low lux lighting,
Right.
and just watch something if you want to. A little show on TV. Nothing that's going to really grab you. Read a book. Do a puzzle. Do a crossword. Only go back to bed as soon as you feel you're starting to get sleepy again.
Okay.
Mm.
And you know what? It's sleep restriction is what's practiced as well. In other words, if somebody's lying in bed, they're in bed for 8 hours and they're only sleeping for 5. That's 3 hours tossing and turning.
Whoa. Yeah, it's
So
a long
what
time.
you do is you say, well, if I'm only sleeping 5 hours, I'm only going to spend 5.5 hours in bed. So you don't go to
Right.
bed, right?
Mm.
Because then you get the sense of success. Hey,
Yeah, okay.
right?
Yep.
So this is part of treatment, right? That's actually done when people are really struggling and they're spending hours in bed. So number one is get up if you can't. You're not going to die if you don't sleep. That's another thing.
Well,
all right.
this is a good
Okay.
point.
It's like, oh my God, I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah, because people panic. They do panic.
They panic. So it's just about literally, it's a combination of techniques. But I think for a lot of people is you get into that, oh my God, I'm going to bed. And they put off going to bed because they think I'm going to be lying there. So that is hugely, hugely, hugely beneficial.
Yeah. And
May
it's fair
I-
to say,
oh.
Caroline, that because of what you do, people might want to get in contact with you. You obviously do the EFT.
Yes.
And you obviously do get to the bottom of the issue as well.
Yeah.
Maybe you can talk about that in just a moment. And what was your question?
I was going to say something. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're qualified in psych.
Yes.
I use a little psychological trick of myself when I desperately need sleep, when I know it's sleep. Okay. I go back to a time in my life where I love my motorsport. We're going to talk about this off camera afterwards. But we love, enough that I named one of my sons Ayrton after Ayrton
Ayrton.
Senna.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Well,
Yep.
there
And my
you
other
go.
son is Ari after Ari Vartan, the rally
Yeah,
driver.
yeah.
So
His middle name was Ball.
my boys. But so a little bit obsessed. But when I was a kid, so when I was like 8-ish, maybe 9, whatever, I used to sneak out and watch the Formula One because it was late at night and I didn't want to get caught and all that kind of thing. But I associate those parts of my life back in those days with struggling to stay awake because it was really late in the night, because back then they didn't play it live. It used to be, 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever. So now sometimes what I'll do, if I think I absolutely need to sleep, I will go put a Formula One race on from the 80s or 90s. I'll put it onto YouTube and I will go blissfully off to sleep because the
Wow.
sound of those beautiful
There we
V8s and
go.
V10s,
Oh,
There we go.
my
Oh, my
gosh.
word.
Now I've
Perfect.
heard
that's
it all.
it is
That
a
is
lullaby to me. That is
Look, there is another technique called thought switching. They reckon
Right.
counting sheep doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
They did
Unless
it
you
in
go
the lab,
backwards.
right? And they said the thought switching does. So what you can switch your thoughts into I suppose different avenues. One could be practicing gratitude, thinking about a couple of things that you're grateful for
Sure.
that went well
Yeah.
during the day. Another is take yourself off
okay.
on a little journey, a trip. It could be a walk. It could be going on a little trail in the bush, someplace that you're basically making a movie in your mind.
Yep.
And literally frame by frame, you step into that movie. So you've got the sights, the sounds, the smells, the color, and you just, the little trail, right? You might be on your motorbike or in a vehicle, in your racing car. And you just, every movement, you see yourself putting on the gear, putting on the helmet. You smell the interior of the car.
She's hypnotizing.
You're strapping
It's
in,
working.
right? Can you hear that click?
Yeah.
And you have the revs. And you take yourself off and you're going around the track. And you know what? You literally, this is a movie you're making. You step into the movie and you play it again and again. And what happens is like people are falling asleep.
Yeah.
Now, this is not going to magically happen after one go. You've got to
You got to work at
It's a
it.
gotta work
great,
at
it's
the
a great
movie.
way to
falling
manifest as
asleep
well.
within about 20 minutes.
Mm.
So I have a place I go. I take myself out to a beautiful little headland. I get into a little clinker-built boat.
Yep.
I push myself off and I can hear the waves just lapping.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm lying in the bottom of this boat that's filled with kind of blue foam. And I'm rocking. And I can feel.
She's putting me to sleep.
I can feel.
Yeah, good night, all.
I can feel I can feel the heat of the sun, the warmth, and I
Yeah.
can smell the ozone. And while I'm there, I do some relaxation work, and I go into I actually go into meditation, right? So I do some breath work, and you know what? Before I know it,
Yeah.
Off we go.
As
so
you would
it's
be.
just you start stacking up techniques.
Yeah.
There are lots of techniques we could talk about today, but
yes,
we
of
won't.
course. We've only
But
got
the
a couple of
idea
minutes.
is to grab a few that
Yeah.
that resonate, and you say, I'm not a meditator. Well, how about this one?
Yeah.
And then you try them. But you know what? You've got to practice them, because they're not going to, if you want to really knock yourself out, I would just say you get that magnum of champagne and you just knock it back, and that will knock you out.
That will definitely knock me out.
That makes
Absolutely.
good for your
Sitting
sleep.
on the table right there. Did
Oh.
you drink all of that?
That is
At
so
one
old. I
stage?
actually shook it back in the day,
Oh,
but
my
there we
goodness.
go. No, and I drank some of it.
Yep. So
Probably about half.
I just wanted to ask this very quickly. So let's just say, for example, like you've talked about Aaron's visualization of being in the car, hearing the belt go click, all of that. So that's typically getting into the sensory acuities, right? Could you utilize, say, your dream life and visualize seeing what you're seeing, hear what you're hearing, feeling what you're feeling, and then wrote that and just keep going around and around till your brain gets so bored you just go, as you say, off to sleep. Would that work?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think it's just what I've gotten from this conversation. There's a lot, by the way. And I'd love to have you back. And we'll just talk about cars. No, but no, in all
He's
honesty,
getting revved up. Sorry, that
boom,
was
boom.
bad.
Hello.
Boom, boom.
But I think what I get out of this is it's a personal journey. Okay,
Yeah.
so what's going to fit me is not going to fit you.
No.
Vice versa. Boom. We've
Everybody's
got to
different.
find what
Yeah.
actually suits
Yes.
us.
100%.
And you also said earlier about the word why. The word why is fundamental to me. I think it's the most important word in the English language.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a why for what they do, for a
Absolutely.
living, for what they do.
Yeah.
What are their missions in life? Their whole sense of being, I guess. Right? Why is why you do things.
Yeah.
So you've got to be questioning yourself about that. And I think that, if you specialize these techniques to suit yourself, the two kind of run hand in hand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you've just kind of nailed it, because you've also given that kind of theory of everybody's different anyway. So what's going to work for you is going to be different for me and for yourself.
Yep.
Last words before we close. We get off the show and you go, oh, I wish I had shared that. Anything?
Look, I think we're all doing our best, and we're always trying. And I think there was a book written in the 70s called The Road Less Traveled, 1978, by Scott Peck. It was a bestseller at the time. And it opens with 3 words: life is difficult. You know what? So if you expect life to be just linear, without turbulence,
You're dreaming.
right? You're dreaming.
Tell him he's dreaming.
I saw a lovely, just last word is, I saw in the paper the other day, it was in the travel section. It was Stephen Scourfield, I think. He was in India, northern India, and there were some of these road signs. And there was a sign, he took a picture of it, and it said, the road to success is always under construction.
Oh, I like
that's
that.
amazing.
I loved it. And
Boom,
I went,
baby.
that's the journey. It's just so expect to fail forwards.
Fail forward.
Well,
Life is a
politicians
journey.
do that for a living. Okay,
No, they're
they
good
fail
at
forward
it.
very much so. It's been an absolute pleasure. Terri, do you have any last thoughts?
I think this is great, Aaron.
Okay.
I just want to hold you a bit accountable and ask
dear.
you next week, what did you do? Did you stay in the same routine of not having a routine?
Will there be a
did
test?
you actually become conscious that there was no routine and that became a routine?
All jokes aside, the fact of the matter is, I think that I know I need to make improvements in my life. Absolutely no, right? And I prioritize the wrong things because, in fairness, I'm thinking big
Not
picture here.
always.
Big picture is very important to me. So, sometimes you sacrifice yourself for the big picture. But perhaps when it comes to sleep, let's cut the crap. If I actually did better in that department, if I actually got better sleep, I'd probably do a better job when I'm awake. So, I think there's
he
there's a lot
just
to
Great
said
insight.
that. I'm going to anchor that
Oh,
in.
look at
There
that.
you go.
Yeah.
And on that bombshell, we're going to finish the show. Thank you very much for
Thank
being
you.
part of the Genius Zone here on Edge Radio Australia.